Cheech and Chong are bringing the brand power. The Entourage Effect is real, say scientists. And warnings about Delta 8 THC are coming from a number of sources. Hello, everybody. Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast once again. I'm Phil. We've got Jay. We've got Andrew. No Faye today, but, we'll get along without her. We're really glad you joined us today. And so we're going to get started right away with that and a whole bunch of other stuff. What's going on with those, Jay? You inherited or adopted or took custody of some pretty wicked-looking weed plants.
Yeah.
How are they doing, man?
Well, I don't have the greenest of thumbs, but it's coming along, man. It's fun. I got a couple of buds that I picked today to test it, and Andrew suggested that I try my dehydrator, which I use to make beef jerky and dried
bologna,
fruits, and everything else. Yeah, and so I'm going to try that. I'm going to try it on really low setting and kind of just keep an eye on it. Maybe speed up the.
So we're gonna see how this strain of weed that you are growing in your own premises, which you are doing entirely legally now, because why?
Absolutely, because I'm in Virginia.
Because Virginia.
Which, by the and listen, I'll just throw this out there. Anybody who's a grower out there that knows 100 million times more than me, let me know. Send us an email, podcast@votepropot.com. Let me know if the dehydrator is a good idea or a bad idea.
Well, it's a okay idea if you just want to dry it and taste it, which is what you want to do.
Yeah, well, this is just
but it's not a good idea to dry your whole harvest. But
that's what I kind of thought.
So how do they do that? They just take the plants, put them upside down, and let them dry, and then start clipping them.
That's my understanding, but what the hell do I know? All I know is what I see on
Andrew?
YouTube. So
what's that?
They just hang the plants upside down, and
you take them and you dry them, and that takes maybe a couple days, whatever. And then you cure them. So when you dry them, you'll squeeze a button, and it'll crunch a little bit, and it'll seem like, that's dry. But then when you put it in a jar and limit the amount of, and you put it in a jar and seal it or a container, then what it draws out the moisture from the interior of the bud. Then all of a sudden, one day the bud seemed all dry. Then you go to cure it, and boy, all of a sudden they're moist again. And then because you don't want to dry them 100%. It's got to be like tobacco.
And you put them in a glass jar and open the top once a day and all that stuff. Yeah. Well, speaking of flower, we have flower in Virginia now, officially as of September 1st. And they're allowed to sell flower in the medical dispensaries. And I've looked into that, and holy God, my dispensary has one strain, and it's $80 for an eighth.
Jeez, that's insane.
It's a little rich for my blood.
That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Well, the thing is, you're
not a big flower smoker anyway, are you, Jay?
No, I'm not real big, but I've been enjoying it more lately. But the way Virginia's set up, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of strange. They have, as I understand, they have 5 different companies. Each one gets a territory in Virginia, and then they can have multiple approved dispensaries within their territories. So far, as I understand from what I've read, only 2 of those out of the 5 have flower ready. So I think what they're doing, and this is speculation, I think they're selling it to the dispensary that's in my area. And that's why it's so expensive, because they're marking it up. Because there's
supply and demand.
Supply and demand. Yeah, exactly. So anyway.
Market
another interesting thing about going on in Virginia I read today, and that is, believe it or not, since they legalized cannabis, marijuana arrests have gone down by 90%.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Man, that's I've seen that happen in other states.
Yeah, we just talked about it in New York last week.
It went down 95%.
They make it legal, and then they stop arresting people for it.
And
what
that's
the hell?
From the first,
they did criminalize in New York. They didn't legalize.
From the first quarter to the second quarter in New York, it went down 95%.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's interesting.
Wow, I wonder if the same thing happened with alcohol when they repealed prohibition. They stopped arresting people for alcohol. Maybe
I would imagine. Yeah, I would imagine.
what gets me is it's legalized, but there's still 10% of the old arrests are still going. Yeah, they're still arresting people.
The people driving around with 4 pounds in their car, you know,
right.
or people using it where they're not supposed to be using it.
Or kids, or people under 21.
Right.
Under 21. That's a big one. And that's it's ticket, basically, I think.
And now there's of course the problem is that it's still federally illegal, and but there are lots of groups, and in this case we read about the National Urban League. Now this is an article from Marijuana Moment by Kyle Yeager, that the National Urban League recently released a policy guidance statement in which it detailed what it wants to see in cannabis reform legislation as a means to promote, obviously, racial equity. The National Urban League president, Mark Morial, said, policymakers must find solutions to generational harms caused by cannabis prohibition, which has devastated Black and brown communities for far too long. You know, they're still putting people behind bars by the thousands. So this is only by way of saying that, yes, we have all these cool state legal things going on, but the big fight is still yet to be won.
Cheech Chong is probably, and High Times are probably the two most iconic brands in the cannabis industry. I'd say, wouldn't you guys agree?
Oh,
I can't think of anything more so than them.
Before I start with this, Jay, I think dehydrating your buds and dehydrated is a good idea. And Phil, are you making fun of my bologna jerky? Is that what you were doing there?
Making fun of your bologna.
My bologna, I make bologna jerky.
You keep your bologna to yourself. And no, I wasn't making fun.
You're making fun of my jerky, man?
Tell us what bologna jerky is. I got to know.
I just thought bologna jerky was kind of an odd thing.
No, I made beef jerky out of beef bologna. And so you just marinate it and dry it. I mean, it's pretty...
How do you marinate bologna? It's like rubber. I mean, how the hell does it absorb
you leave it in for a couple of days.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Wow.
If you can figure out a way to dehydrate Velveeta cheese, you might really have something there.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, you can. You really can.
I'm sure you can.
But anyway, Eighth Icon Brands has just thrown away their brand. The Eighth Icon brand, they just retired it. And now it's the Cheech Chong brand.
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah. Now, Eighth Icon were already repping and already producing some Cheech Chong brand products.
Right.
But now they're obviously their whole company. You know, they're changing their website to Cheech Chong Cannabis.
Wow. Can you blame them?
Well, this is something that in marketing you don't take lightly. People do not are very averse to, messing with a successful brand. It's very difficult to build a brand. And if you have a successful brand, you don't want it diluted and you don't want it. But what that says is that the Cheech and Chong brand power must be, and they must consider it hugely.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? I mean, I don't care who you are.
But amongst the market, amongst the marijuana users, Cheech and Chong is like,
well, it's like Willie Nelson,
the pinnacle.
I mean, Willie Nelson. I mean, you just can't. That's why I really would predict big things. I mean, think of Tommy Chong was in jail a couple years ago for selling bongs. For selling bongs with his son. It was really more of his son's deal,
right?
But they raided his house with helicopters and SWAT teams and everything. Yeah, it's insane.
And he wasn't even selling weed or seeds.
No, he was selling paraphernalia.
Right.
Paraphernalia. Didn't he have a kit that was supposed to test urine or something, or you could use to add to your urine so you wouldn't test? I don't know. I thought I read that a few years ago.
But Cheech Marin had more or less. He went mainstream acting. Oh yeah, he was in that. It was all in a bunch of TV and movies.
Cop shows.
But he really sort of was distancing himself from the whole cannabis industry because he was trying to go mainstream, be a serious actor.
Right.
And, that's true. And look at him now. He's right back because
he's back and Tommy's out of jail. And they're both they're knocking him out of the park now.
Well, you can't run away from who you are for much too long. Not that he was doing that. And he was on that show Nash Bridges in the 80s for a while. And it was really good. But
God,
it
they've been
doesn't
around for a
surprise
long
me
time.
that they're back together.
And
And
Tommy Chong was on the '70s show. Remember that?
that's right.
Oh yeah, that's right.
right.
He was. But we grew up on Cheech and Chong. I mean, at our age, that was the shit when it came
Yeah.
to comedy. You know,
Yeah, Cheech and Chong and George Carlin.
George Carlin.
Those
right.
were the real stoner comedians back then.
Well, if you want to know what our life was like in the when we were teenagers, watch the '70s show, because that was pretty much spot on. We're hanging out in Jay's basement. He was driving his family station wagon with his girlfriend named Donna.
Yeah, it pretty much nailed it, didn't it?
Man, it was like, I'm watching it going, wait a minute, did they steal our life here? What?
Actually, if you see the movie Dazed and Confused, one of the first things Matthew McConaughey did, one of the few things Ben Affleck ever did, that was spot on. I mean, that was actually our year, our graduating class.
Yeah.
And that was pretty damn spot on. So
that's a good movie. That's a funny movie, man. There's some good stuff in there.
yeah. That's what I love about high school girls. I get older, they say the same age.
Are you guys Delta 8 users?
Oh, no, I've never used Delta 8.
Yeah.
I've never had occasion to.
You did, Andrew?
I bought a cart when you were on your recommendations and, tried it, but it didn't, I really,
Yeah.
What did you like?
I can legally smoke weed. I mean,
Right.
Why would I smoke that when I can just buy a regular vape?
Yeah.
Well,
now,
my concern was how the lack of regulation and so forth. And
well, what was your experience about it? How did you like it? And what did
Me
you
or
like
Andrew?
about it? You, Jay.
I liked it. It's very much like THC. Like Delta 9. It's very similar. It's just a little less intense.
It's one delta
maybe.
off.
Yeah, it's one delta off. It's a little less intense.
It's one louder, isn't it?
Isn't it? So here's an article. This is the
Is there a
Society of
Delta
Cannabis.
11?
Society of Cannabis Clinicians. Okay, that's a obviously scientists in the cannabis field published a paper here and did a study. It says the conversion of CBD or Delta 9 into Delta 8 often utilizes light hydrocarbons and acids such as sulfuric acid and solvents. These solvents are often found as contaminants in the products because the producer is not taking the steps to ensure that they wash it out in the final product.
Aha.
So this concerns them very much.
I would think so.
It basically says the conversion of is complicated. The process results in a number of molecular isomers that do not exist in nature. So even though you're coming from a natural plant, and to just kind of give some background on this for those who don't know, what happened was they passed the Farm Bill, and what it basically said is that anything that you derive from hemp, the hemp oil is legal. So some smart people got together and figured out that they could take this hemp and synthesize it into Delta 8, which is very similar to Delta 9. Delta 8 is a molecule that is in weed, is in cannabis, but in very, very, very minute amounts. So they figured out how to synthesize it from the oil, and it gets you high, and it's legal because of a technicality. So you could sell it at 7-Eleven.
Right. It kind of sits in a legal gray area where there just really no laws that govern it.
Right, at this stage. They're starting to be in some states. But anyway, the bottom line of this article is just that you should be really careful. The companies that are making these products are untrained garage chemists for the most part, is what it says in this article. Ooh. And they don't follow any GMP standards. So you don't know. Some of it may be safe and okay, but some of it may not be. So I'm not going to use it anymore until they regulate
what is
it.
this SCC organization?
Well, what it says in their about page is that they're essentially a group of scientists who study cannabis, and it's a nonprofit. It's clinicians, so it's pharmacists and different people. They do educational
people
support.
who know their stuff.
It's just an association of scientists and others that relate to the cannabis industry. So they're basically issuing a caution: be careful. It's not regulated. That should tell you all you need to know.
Yeah, interesting, because not one but two federal agencies are basically issuing the same warnings to cannabis consumers about the risks of Delta 8. There is the Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They're both saying that they've seen an increase in reports of adverse health effects from people who are using Delta 8. Now, what they're saying is, now, of course, this has become widely available. Interestingly enough, they're widely available both in states that have legalized and states that haven't legalized. So, and I'm not sure why that is, but that seems to be the case. But the FDA in particular said that they're receiving reports of people experiencing all kinds of symptoms like vomiting, hallucinations, trouble standing, loss of consciousness, others after using Delta 8 products. So they're just
that's pretty serious.
Yeah, so they're pretty issuing warnings or advice saying that Delta 8 THC has not been evaluated as safe, nor has it been approved for use in any context. So, take that for what it's worth. I say go natural, man.
Me too. And you asked the question, why would people buy it, especially in a legal state? That's a great question. There's a couple of reasons I see. One is the obvious one. It's a lot less expensive. You buy carts for like $20 and it's very inexpensive relative to cannabis stuff. And two, you can get it so many places. You don't need a card. There's still, I'd be interested to know how many people that consume cannabis in legal states, let's just use Maryland and Virginia. How many of those have cards? I wonder. I have a feeling there's still a pretty damn large percentage. I'm going by the people that I know that use cannabis. Maybe
I'm sure you're right.
Can say.
Well, some people don't want it because of their jobs.
Exactly. Understood.
And some people can't get cards because they love their guns.
Right. That's true in Maryland. Yeah.
Right.
And
that's true.
Some people don't get a card because I believe also because of medical insurance. I feel like they might have Kaiser or some big, they're
the HMOs. They don't allow that sort of thing.
Right. You test positive marijuana, we will not prescribe you your painkiller or some other medicine. In some cases, it was like diabetes medicine.
I ran into that. Exactly. I ran into that because I'm with Kaiser. Yeah.
Yeah. With
right.
Kaiser.
And they said I tested positive for THC, and the doc gave me a lecture, said he couldn't write me any prescriptions for painkillers or any kind of, which I don't take anyway, but nonetheless.
But you might need them.
Yeah. What if I do? Yeah, I have a surgery or something. I told him, I said, well, dude, it's legal. I don't care. We don't, it's policy. So yeah, I think that's true, Andrew. That might be part of it. But I know people.
There's a stigma attached to it. And until that goes away.
You're right. It's all about the stigma. I know half a dozen people who regularly use cannabis who don't have a card. And I say, why won't you get the card? And they won't do it. I just don't want to be on a list. It's like, one guy I know.
I don't want the man.
Yeah. And he's retired. It's not about his job. He's not a gun owner, but he won't do it.
Yeah.
He's still,
there's still some irrational fears out there, but it comes from, living a long life of being on the other side of the law because the law has decided to put you there.
You're right. And most of the people I know, of course, are my age. They're in their 60s. So it's how stigmatized was this shit 40 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
So
and then, of course, especially people who may have had run-ins with the law.
Everybody who listens to us must know and follow us on social networking. But go to our Facebook page and check out. There's a grandmother was arrested in Tennessee for growing weed. She had a little pot farm, and when they took her down and took her mug shot, she just flipped them off, man. 2 birds, both hands. A double fuck you.
Double fuck you.
A double fuck you.
This is a grandma in Tennessee?
It's a classic photo. She looks pissed. She's like, fuck you guys.
How many plants did she have?
The line up, the lines behind her head. They're doing her mugshot,
Yeah.
It's the best. I want.
Did she have like tattoos on her face or anything?
No,
or was this
just
like a regular
looks like
grandma?
a little sweet little grandmother.
No kidding.
Short white hair.
Yeah.
She probably doesn't have any neck tats.
Her shirt looks like it has prints of little dogs on it.
Oh wait. Is that is that a spider web on her neck? Never mind. Tennessee's still pretty strict,
Yeah.
With Nashville and all that, you wouldn't expect it, but
Now, not so strict as Arizona, because in Arizona, there's a dispensary now who's trying to raise awareness for breast cancer. And what they're doing, you come in and give them your bra, and they'll give you a free pre-roll and donate money to to breast cancer. I really don't know.
It's a promotion. Now, do you have to take the bra off, or can you just bring one?
That's kind of sexist, isn't it? I mean,
I don't know.
Nah, not for breast cancer.
What are guys supposed to do?
Well,
that's true.
Guys,
for breast cancer.
I guess we're waiting for the jock straps for testicular.
For those of you who wear bras,
yeah, a bro,
a man's ear.
Well, I guess you're waiting for some testicular disease.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, that sounds like a pretty smart promotion, actually. So
the breast cancer awareness people have the best operation going.
Their marketing team
anywhere. I mean, they get half of the NFL dressing up in pink for a month. I mean, that's
right. That's hard to do.
Well, let's face it, breast cancer touches every family. I mean, we all know people.
My mother had it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all know family members. So yeah, I mean that makes sense.
So save the tatas. So for those who are not familiar with the Entourage Effect, there are cannabinoids that can be extracted from marijuana that on their own, like CBD, cannabidiol, has its health benefits and its effects. THC has its effect, but there is an idea called the Entourage Effect that says what you really need is all of that stuff in there. Because there's not just those two. There's CBG, cannabigerol. There's a whole raft, and not just that, plus the terpenes. Exactly. And all of it together is what you really want for the best health benefits.
Well, this is an article in Green Entrepreneur, and it says it's all in the terpenes. So you hit the nail on the head there, Phil.
With the terpenes?
Many people might dismiss the Entourage Effect as a marketing campaign, but a new study has found the effect is key to how cannabis can provide pain relief and may play a big role in how efficiently cannabis delivers such relief. Researchers from the University of Arizona Health Sciences conducted a study. They wrote in a news release that the presence of an entourage effect has been an unresolved mystery until now. The researchers write that they found evidence that favors the entourage effect theory and positions cannabis terpenes, the part of the plant that provides flavor and aroma, as a promising new target for pain therapies and would require lower doses and produce fewer side effects. So these studies seem to point to what you're saying, that the entourage effect is for real.
When you go to a dispensary and they're going, do you want a sativa or an indica or a hybrid? Do you want to mellow out? Do you want to go bowling, or do you want to watch a movie?
Right.
Yeah, THC is THC. You can't tell me that THC in one plant is going to make a different effect than the other. So it has to be all the other compounds is what makes
the combinations,
the difference between the different strains.
Right.
Exactly. In the study published in the Scientific Report, the researchers wrote, our findings suggest that these cannabis terpenes are multifunctional cannabinometric ligands that provide conceptual support for the entourage effect hypothesis and could be used to enhance the therapeutic properties of cannabinoids. And they go on to say that they give some examples and so much about how terpenes work. And it says that the THC enters the body, it binds to the cannabinoid receptors. We know that,
right?
Cannabinoid receptors. And
because of the endocannabinoid system.
And what they found interesting is that non-THC or CBD and the terpenes will actually mimic those compounds by bonding to those receptors. And they did not expect that. They found that scientifically. Yeah. And so they did some testing with mice, and they tried different combinations of terpenes and cannabinoids, and they found that the test subjects, the mice, experienced an even greater reduction in pain when the terpenes were included. So anyway,
now, did they single out any terpenes
They did not in the study. It was generalized.
Generalized, okay.
But what's interesting is that, we've talked about this entourage effect forever and ever. And, it's some people said, it's just marketing. It's just this, it's just that. The study so far, which this is a pretty intense study.
And ongoing, I'm sure.
And ongoing. And it finds that, there's truth to that. These combinations, and Andrew's been talking about this since we started this podcast.
Yeah, pretty much.
The combinations of these compounds is what's really powerful.
Right.
And which really seems to do the most good in terms of as a medicine.
Well, I know that when I buy, whether it's flower or vape or anything, I like the ones that have basically 1-to-1 or even 2-to-1 CBD to THC. But I don't know what terpenes you get from like vapes or gummies or anything like that. I suppose that it's the same as anything else. But
one of the things they discussed in this article was exactly that, Phil, is that, you lose a lot of the effect when you pull everything out with the concentrate. So you just have, for example, THC and CBD. That's all you have, and oils and some other things.
Right.
If you do that, it doesn't seem to be as effective for certain. Again, there's just so many compounds and terpenes.
The vape carts have all the different compounds and
they do.
listed.
Some of the oils do too.
Well, otherwise you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
They wouldn't taste so cool because some of them have got
true.
Right.
That I've had taste delicious.
And also, I'm wondering how this whole live resin thing affects the compounds besides THC and CBD.
Yeah, I would be interested to know.
A mature plant with the buds just perfectly ready to harvest. They cut it, they flash freeze it, then they process the frozen plant instead of curing it. I wonder how that affects the terpenes and the cannabinoids.
That's a good question.
Are you going to, because it seems to me it's going to be, what happens during the curing process? Do they mellow? Do they change? Do they evolve? I mean,
right.
I don't know.
Right. Well,
that's why we need more. What do we need more of? Research.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we want to hear your opinions on these things. If you have some ideas, anything you want to share with us, please do check us out. Go to VoteProPot.com, leave us a message. If you happen to be on Apple Podcasts and you have a moment, give us a 5-star rating. Tell some friends about VoteProPot-Cast. I'm sure they'd love to hear about it. And Jay is here with some other things you can do to share your thoughts.
Well, you can send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com. And we have a message line. You call in and you'll hear my voice, and then you just leave a message and we'll play it. We'll answer the question, whatever you got. 240-257-2441. Andrew.
There's so much going on in the cannabis industry that we really can't discuss it all here on our podcast. So we share a lot on social networking. So go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn and do a search for Vote Pro Pot.